Max, talking of best espresso that you've had in ages, we're going to actually go through. We're going to go through a. We're going to have a session today on making great espresso.
Yes.
But in particular, right, there's a number of things. What I really want to do is pick up on maybe some of the less talked about things, because we're going to go through. We're going to cover the basics, obviously, as well. But we're also going to cover some of the things that I personally have learned over the last, I think probably even over the last year, even though I've been making espresso longer, even the last year, I've been making espresso in different ways with lots of different beans because of this whole bean thing that we've been doing. And that's challenged me in a number of different ways, I have to say. I found it very, very challenging, very enlightening. And I've had to adapt my style and try different things. And so we're going to talk about both of our experiences and give some tips on what's helped us make better espresso. So, are you ready?
Always. I was born ready.
I was really hoping you weren't going to say that, but you went there.
Hey, I am Mr. Obvious here.
Okay, Captain Obvious. Okay, well, Captain Obvious, you can do the obvious ones, but the obvious ones, what we're really talking about when we actually have to say, let's define espresso for a second, because one of the things I found is that depending upon the type of beans that I'm using and the characteristics of those beans, I will sometimes prefer to have them as a ristretto.
Yeah.
And some of my family and friends will prefer to have them as a lungo. And I would categorize all of these things as espresso-ish drinks.
Absolutely.
And so actually, when we talk about making great espresso, what we might be doing is actually saying when you might want to try to move the needle one way or the other and create a different type of drink out of it. But also some of the additional tips that, and maybe some of the old wives' tales that get debunked or not, and some of the little tips that maybe I'd be hand on heart say I was kind of ashamed of. I was ashamed of because I thought they were probably stupid and that I was being stupid for doing them, and found out later I was vindicated. Because actually, they smart espresso people are also doing this. So, with that said, let's start. Should we start with a few of the basic things? So, for those people who are coming in who are maybe more early on in the game of making espresso and just want to lay down the basics of how you make a good espresso, what are the things that you need to do? Do you want to kick off with? We'll do a little backwards and forwards.
Yeah,
you kick off with one,
I
and
think actually we should first of all we should divide the thing in two. So there is if you're at the beginning of it, if you're at the beginning of your journey, try to do the least you do, the better it is, because there is less stuff that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And when you see people doing all fancy stuff, first of all, not always they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that is a fact.
That's so true.
And that is also true with us, because
no, it's not. What am I saying?
And then there are other things that are a little more advanced that you can do, starting, for example, with the pre-infusion and this kind of stuff. But if you don't need to do it to have a great espresso shot.
Right. Well, in actual fact, I'm glad you mentioned pre-infusion, because that was one of the things I wanted just to pick up on is say, let's try and keep this. We can touch upon something like that, what that is. But let's not say things like, well, the first thing you need to do is go and spend $12,000 on a, XYZ machine. Let's try and keep it, say, you know what, anybody with any machine
can do pre-infusion.
You can maybe make a small investment. You can go and spend $40 or $20 or something to buy an X. But let's not say, go and change your machine out to one that has pre-infusion.
No, absolutely not. You don't need it.
Well, I need it, obviously, but
well, yeah, I mean, because we got upgraditis.
I think I know what that is, but I don't know what it is.
We've got upgraditis. So when you need to
upgraditis.
Upgraditis.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I've definitely got upgraditis. Yeah.
But you don't need it.
No, you don't. You don't. It's not going to be the problem you'll start out with. Go, Max.
Absolutely.
Go.
So first things first. The main thing you need is a grinder. good grinder.
Yeah.
And I cannot stress these enough. So you need something that is consistent, something that is efficient, and something that you can trust from shot to shot. And you don't need anything that is crazy, that you have like micro adjustment, stepless adjustments. That's rubbish. That's a load of rubbish. The coffee grinder needs to get you close to where you need to be, and then you can play around with other variables. You can play around with the quantity of coffee. You can play around with the tamping. You can play around with a different portafilter, for example, or with the volume that you extract into. But all of the coffee grinders that are rated for espresso, and they must be rated for espresso, so don't go and get 50-pound coffee grinder, because that's not going to make espresso. It's not going to make good tasting espresso. It's not going to make good tasting.
And when we say 50 pounds,
whatsoever.
we're talking the currency here, as in $50, not 50 pound as in the weight, which is what an American would think.
Oh, no. I apologize. So don't go get a cheap one. If you have to get a cheap one, you don't get it, and you can get either pre-ground coffee from the roasters. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be close to something better. Or get a cheap grinder and get a pressurized portafilter. It's absolutely fine to use a pressurized portafilter, and it will get you started on the different beans and on the different variety of beans. Then you can move from that. So I would say the grinder first. In light of my new discovery of the hand grinder, actually getting a hand grinder might give you more value for your money.
Yeah.
Because if you spend a couple of £100, so $250 on a hand grinder, you will get a hand grinder that is on par with an electric grinder that is about, I don't know, 500-ish.
Right.
So you're upping your game significantly, and they're fine. So that's my number one thing.
Okay.
What do you think?
So I would agree that the grinder is like the number one thing to start with, or certainly, it is the number one thing to start with. I'm going to disagree with you on the pressurized portafilter side. I've never made a huge amount of coffee, so I don't know on what basis I'm disagreeing. Principle, I think probably principle. But I would say I would agree with the motives behind it, which is don't buy a cheap grinder because that's all you've got at the moment. Save up and get a decent grinder. It doesn't have to be a fortune. As Max is saying, like some of those hand grinders apparently are fantastic, and I have heard the same thing as well from other people. So don't buy cheap, because you definitely will end up buying twice, or spending a lot of money on beans and trying to work out why it all still tastes disgusting, and it'll be because you've got a really bad quality grinder. So that's definitely, I do agree with that. So the funny enough, also the next thing, I'm just covering some of the basic things here. I'd say beans. I mean, it sounds obvious, and again, some people are gonna, things, if we don't mention this, someone's going to shoot us down. I guarantee you, someone will write to us and go, well, you even forgot to mention that you need to buy fresh beans. Well, yeah, okay. So the beans make a huge amount of difference. As a matter of fact, not only you want to say fresh beans, I would say you want to get freshly roasted beans, but you must let them sit for at least 7 days, maybe 10 days or so. Mm-hmm. So I always buy beans that have a roast date on them. Yeah. And I can look at that roast date, and I know if they were roasted 5 days ago, I'll wait another 4 days or 5 days before I will start to use them. But you certainly don't want to buy beans that you've had in your cupboard for the last 6 months and you bought from the supermarket, and you think, I'll start with that. You just probably, almost certainly won't get good coffee out of those. So I'd say start with fresh beans, Max.
The coffee machine, obviously. So you don't need to spend a fortune on a coffee machine. You just need to get something that is reliable, that is clean enough. And also, you do not need to upgrade your coffee machine indefinitely, doing crazy things. Most of the times, and I see these in a lot of Facebook groups, people start buy a Gaggia Classic, and then they start putting, I've put the PID on, I've put the dimmer switch modification to have flow control, and then put the pressure gauge, and then put IMS screen, IMS baskets, and all of these sort of things. You don't need that. You do not need, especially IMS screen, shower screen. You don't need it. If you keep your machine stock, it's capable of perfectly good espresso without needing any sort of modification. Once you're comfortable with that, very comfortable, and that's why you don't need to upgrade it right away. Once you're very comfortable, you can start thinking, okay, I want to upgrade something and see what difference it makes. Because if you hear us, for example, Nick and I, talking about, oh yeah, I got a new IMS basket and it did make a difference. That is because we actually have consistently good espresso from our Gaggia systems.
Yeah, so it's the next, basically, it's the next, you're taking it to the point where you've got it to the weakest point, and now you're addressing the next weakest point. If you haven't got it to the weakest point yet, because you're not making good espresso, and the problem isn't the basket, the problem is you or the beans that you've got. Start with the basics, work your way up, right? And then don't bother doing the fancy stuff until you've got a good enough setup and set of skills that kind of make
precisely.
A difference.
Because it will just confuse the hell out of you.
Yeah.
Changing too many variables at the same time, it's just too much.
Yeah. So for me, the next thing I'll do is, I think so. But the last thing, actually, I was going to say on the basic side of things, because I think we're covering the basics in terms of what we're buying, what you've got in terms of equipment, is the water. Now, this was a tough one a few years ago, because if you wanted to say to somebody, get good coffee water or good water for coffee, they'd have to plug in a system, and then the whole thing became very difficult to do. But now, actually, you can go and get some tablets. There's tablets out there that you can put into your water jug, or you can do what I've got, which is the Peak Portafilter, which is a British company, has got this, it's like a Brita jug, like a Brita water filter, but made for coffee. And it makes a huge difference. It's a completely different filtration system, and it's matched. You set it up, and there's a control knob on there that sets it to the particular hardness of the water that you've got. And that makes an immediate night and day difference. And it's a pretty low investment once you've got it. So I would say get the water set up. That will make an impact on your coffee. So if you've got fresh beans, you've got a decent grinder, you've got fresh water, you've got a basic espresso machine you need some manual control over it. If all it is push a button, okay, you're in the wrong podcast. I think.
The black box approach doesn't really help, because it's going to make something and you don't know what it's doing.
No, and you won't have the ability to adjust it depending upon what kind of espresso you want, or what kind of beans you've got. So that basically covers it. So you've got the bases covered. If you've done that,
we forgot one thing.
Oh, have I forgot something? What have I forgotten?
Scale.
Oh, I haven't forgotten. That's in the. That's not. Well, I put that in the second level. But maybe it's in the first level. You think that's at the first level?
I think it's in the first level because, for example, I didn't use scale at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And because I was just eyeballing it. And you can eyeball it, but you need some experience to eyeball how much coffee goes in. I know that when I pour my espresso, I know that more or less I'm putting about between 16 and 18 grams. But that is already a big difference.
Yeah.
So a scale, I'm not saying get an Acaia Pearl or anything that is 0.1 gram accurate. A scale. Kitchen scale.
Well, I'll tell you why I put it in the second group. And I remember now, is I wanted to put it in the first group, but as soon as you get a scale, it introduces a whole lot of follow-on factors that you need to consider. For example, Max, for me, the cheaper scales are not tiny and small and thin. They are sort of, because they're cheap, they tend to be a bit bulkier. And on the Gaggia Classic Pro that I've got, if you put the scale underneath of that with the standard 2-spout portafilter basket, your espresso glass or cup doesn't fit underneath. So you can't actually be weighing the coffee when it comes out. And now there's ways around that, but now you start getting into a little bit more complicated. So what I would say is, I don't know the right answer to this, but I think it's absolutely correct that you get a scale. You can get a cheap one, and you can weigh it before and after. So you've got an idea of how much volume and whether you're right on the money with the weight when it's coming out.
Yes, because you can time it.
You can time it. But the thing is the important point on this is that if you think that, well, you know what, this is an art, and I'm going to be an art, and this is going to be, and doing all this math and this scale, it's not really for me. If you think that, you're going to get frustrated, because if you don't weigh what's going in and what's coming out initially, until you really, really, and even when you really know your stuff, you still use the scale. But
yes,
at the beginning, it's almost the most important thing. Because if you don't do that, you're just wandering around in the dark. It's a bit like trying to find a black cat in the dark when you're blindfolded. You're making espresso. You don't know how many beans are going in. You don't know how much grounds are getting out. You don't know how much coffee you're getting out when you've made your espresso. Those are all the variables that matter, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to put some kind of framework in place where you know how much beans are going in, how much grounds are coming out, how much coffee you've made at the end of it, and you can get an idea of what to expect in terms of flavor. And if there's something wrong with the flavor there, you can say, right, well, I've done all the rest of it. Okay, maybe I need to change something else. So yeah, it's a good point. Good call.
Yeah, because to me, the scale comes because you know how much coffee you're putting in. Then weighing afterwards, that's secondary, but at least you know how much coffee you're putting in your portafilter.
Yeah.
If you get a consistent dose, well, that's one of the things you can fix, and you can change the grind, you can change how you tamp. And then brings to the next bit, tamping.
Right. Do you want to do tamping next, or the portafilters or the baskets?
I would actually do tamping first. Portafilter
Okay,
baskets, you need to know them, and you need to know what they look like and how much they can take in. And so, for example, one thing, it's a myth that a lot of people I hear from, read from a lot of people. The Gadget Classic Portafilter, the original Portafilter, does not take 18 grams. It's a 16-gram Portafilter.
That's
filter,
right.
Not portafilter, filter. So that's another important thing. But tamping, for example, I see a lot of things that often people tend to, first of all, they tamp a lot, and they go with both hands on top of the tamper. You don't need that. You don't need to do that. You just tap on the side to distribute it more or less flat, and then press it down to flatten it. More or less the weight of an arm, like of an uncomfortably pushing with one arm. That's it.
Yeah, this is one of those old wives' tales. Look, this is probably one of the most debated areas of espresso making, and people have made a fortune on fancy tampers. I would say you don't need to get a fancy tamper. I've made a lot of great coffee without tamping at all. So that's another thing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it's a place to start. I think it's a good idea to tamp your coffee when you're starting out, but it is not important whether you get the exact right amount of pressure. I wouldn't get fussed about that. I would be much more focused on making sure that you have distributed the coffee evenly and then are tamping evenly with the right size tamper that fits into the basket, which is another absolutely crucial element, because if you're not tamping on the sides, so it doesn't fit all the way in on the sides, the water's just going to run down the side. You're going to get what's called channeling, and that's going to be, doesn't matter how good you do the rest of it, that's going to wreck your espresso every single time. So getting the right size tamper with a flat base, not any kind of curves or concave.
You don't need those fancy ones.
Not a fancy one, and just push evenly so that it's flat.
Yeah, and another thing that I see a lot, push and pull up. Do not spin the thing, because that is just for making the surface look good.
Polished, right?
Yes.
And if you, the mistake people make, actually, and I used to, this is one of the mistakes I made. I'll come clean. I used to push and then I would spin, but I would have some pressure spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned later on, of course, is if you've got any pressure when you're spinning, you'll disrupt, you'll maybe cause a little bit of little fractures or whatever.
You will unseat the puck.
Yeah,
so
it's not
gonna
good.
have water running around.
So that brings me on to the next thing. I'm going to talk about the baskets, actually. No, yes. You know what? You talk about the baskets. Okay. I want to say, because I think you mentioned the scales and the amount going in there. Mm-hmm. You can talk about the making sure you got the right basket for the quantity of coffee you're making.
Yes.
I want to talk about. What do I want to talk about, Max? Baskets.
the Portafilters. Or not?
Not the. We could not really. Well, here's what I want to talk about. So, the objective. Mm-hmm. The objective is to make, and this is all kind of lined up with I guess the basket, the Portafilter. Mm-hmm. But so when you're starting out, or even when you're not starting out, because again, this was something that I learned, I think relatively later on. I followed. I was like, see monkey, do monkey, whatever, right? That's what I would do. I see someone do it that way. That's how I do it. And actually, funny enough, I mean, making coffee in a coffee shop for ages, I won't say I've learned more making coffee at home, much more than ever in the shop. Mm-hmm. In the shop, when I was running my shop and I was making lots and lots of coffees, we made the same coffees, mm-hmm. right? So we didn't change the beans. We didn't change the grinder. We didn't change the grind settings because mm-hmm. we're not a particularly sophisticated coffee shop. It was more like a deli.
It wasn't sophisticated.
The deli we had, it was very sophisticated. It was we had like it was a restaurant deli coffee shop. Mm-hmm. But in there when we made coffee, we made a lot of coffees. Mm-hmm. But the coffee making process there was much more around utilitarian concerns. Mm-hmm. Get me 10 espressos, right? Bang, 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 bang. Next, and try to avoid the person behind you with a knife who's slicing something. Mm-hmm. So that's where all the training was around. At home, I'm getting different beans every week because of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to extract different flavors and try different types of espressos. So I'm learning a lot more. And so one of the things that I learned was that, and this sounds very basic when you say it, but mm-hmm. a lot of people don't understand the science, that your objective, the water is coming down from the shower screen. It hits the coffee puck.
Yeah.
Right. It soaks into the coffee puck. And what you want is an even extraction from the top to the bottom mm-hmm. of that coffee puck. So now understanding this, once you understand this, everything else all kind of makes a lot of sense. A lot of the other stuff we're talking about makes sense. If you've got a coffee puck that is uneven, or if you've got a coffee puck where the granules and the fines that mm-hmm. are included in there are distributed unevenly, mm-hmm. the water will find, because it's under pressure, will find that way through. And so some water will be running faster and therefore extracting less coffee than other water that's going through in another location will be going mm-hmm. through slower and extracting more coffee. You'll get what's called an uneven extraction. It'll taste disgusting and it'll be different every time. So your objective is for the water to go through the coffee from the top of the puck to the bottom of the puck uniformly, equally, with an mm-hmm. equal extraction. And how do you do that? You do that with a good grinder. If you don't have a good grinder, you cannot do that. Ergo, you cannot have a good extraction. Mm-hmm. You do that with what we call puck preparation, which is how you get, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is how you get the puck in a condition where the water is going to flow evenly through it. And you do that with a decent basket.
Yeah. And another thing that I would point at, if your training comes from a coffee shop, you don't drink those coffees. And that makes a difference because you have no way of telling, unless you just look at them, how the coffee tastes.
That's right. And what's more, it doesn't matter because people would come to me and they'd all have different ideas of what they wanted. Mm-hmm. Some people would say, I want it long. Some people, I want it short. Some people want it hotter, I want it colder. And so the way that we did that in the coffee shop was very different from the way that you would So the way you'd address those questions in a coffee shop is very different from the way you'd address it at home, because we're limited in the coffee shop. We've got a 3-group machine that's set up in a particular way by the guys that do the maintenance. I can't change the temperature on it. I didn't have the latest fancy machine. This is, this was not in London. This was out in North Macedonia.
Yeah, but they're also designed to do different things.
Yeah, they are designed. They're designed to keep a level temperature and to kick out coffee after coffee after coffee at a consistent temperature.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that people tend to forget when they get into these coffee shenanigans. Coffee machine is more expensive. Heat exchanger is more expensive. Must be better. No, it's not necessarily better.
Yeah, actually, different purpose.
A heat exchanger might actually be a pain to use compared to a Gaggia, because it depends. It depends how many coffees you make one after the other. It depends what's important for you.
Right.
You want to steam and have a coffee at the same time. If you want to make 2 or 3 shots in a row and be okay, then yes, you need a heat exchanger. You want a heat exchanger. Otherwise, a Gaggia is perfectly fine. A Gaggia, Sage, anything with a single boiler.
Yeah. So talk about the puck. So we've talked about puck preparation. Talk about the basket and how that's important in the whole scheme of things.
So baskets, they, first of all, it's important to understand the dose that a basket is designed for. Yeah. So the single dose basket is designed for 7 grams. So you sometimes get it in Gaggia Classics. I don't know, because I don't think I've ever bought a new one.
No.
So I don't know if you get one.
Generally, single dose espressos don't make the best espresso.
Yeah. So that is designed for 7 to 9 grams. It depends. When you have this bracket, it actually depends on the coffee that you're using. So if you use a very dark roast, which is very dry, you want to use the lower threshold, so 7 grams, because there's going to be very little water content. So the same weight is going to have more volume. If you use a light roast, it's going to be heavier because there's more water retained in there, and it's going to be heavier. So if you take the 7 grams, you're going to have very little coffee. And that's why you have the bracket. If you go for bigger baskets, the double dose that comes standard on the Gaggia Classic is actually 14 grams. 16 sometimes you can push, especially if you use light roasts. So 16 grams you can put on that basket. If you use a dark roast, probably 14 grams is already plenty enough. And when you see the imprint of the shower screen, you've put too much coffee.
Yeah, that's always when it sticks to the top of your shower screen.
When you take the coffee after you pull an espresso, when you take the portafilter out, if you see the shower screen impression, that's too much coffee.
Yeah.
And do not do the autopsy of the pack unless you really want to see something particular, but then you have to break the pack apart and then see if there is dry patches.
This is one of the things I learned about doing puck autopsy, because I did that for quite a long time. And then I found out that the reason why it's useless, and that is because if you're using a coffee machine with a solenoid valve, and a solenoid valve is this thing. So if you imagine you're putting pressure on the puck, all the water's got pressure on the puck, is pushing the water through. And then in order to make your puck nice and not soupy and dry, when you finish the extraction, the pressure basically reverses. The water stops going through. There's a vacuum, and the water, whatever water is at the top of the puck, is sucked back out and then goes out the pipe.
Yeah,
that's what the solenoid valve does. That suction will create fractures, or potentially could create disruption or fractures in your puck. So you could take it out, look at your puck, and go, "Oh, that's the problem. I got a problem there. Got a little bit of disruption on my puck." Well, you don't know, because that may have happened during the process when you finish the extraction.
Yeah, very true. Again, also still on the baskets, there are many different baskets. If you start going around and shop around, you're gonna find that there are what are called competition baskets, which are nicer baskets. They are engineered. The holes of the basket are more round, more regular, and that also helps in the extraction. But it will only help you if you already are on the very edge of what you can obtain from the machine, getting a new basket, if you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to waste your money.
Unless you've got a bad basket. And I say that when I say bad, I mean a tapered basket, because one of the things that I know made a difference to me was my original Gaggia basket has, oh no, actually, no, it wasn't original. It was the second one I got, but I got it and it had a tapering at the bottom. I think the original one did. I can't remember if it did or not. So basically what we're talking about in the basket, you got the walls down the side, but when it hits the bottom before it goes in the holes, some of them taper in, presumably to try to concentrate the water flow into a smaller surface area. And that's generally now eschewed, or has been, people believe that's not the way you should work out your flow. You should try to get a flow profile through the basket. Have vertical walls that just stop at the bottom, so that what you've got is an even amount of coffee from top to bottom. That thing we talked about earlier before, about having an even extraction of coffee as the water goes through from the top of the puck to the bottom of the puck. It can only happen if you've got an even puck. If you've got a shaped puck, then that doesn't apply anymore. That science doesn't apply anymore.
Exactly. If you have a taper on the side, you're going to have a slower flow than on the center.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's, your extraction is going to be different. But I wouldn't rule it out, not yet, because as long as it's consistent, you're okay.
Right.
So it has to be consistent. And if you use the stock basket, it's still going to be consistent if you have the right technique. So you don't need the upgrades until you need the upgrades.
Right. So you're being far too sensible for this podcast, Max. You're being far too sensible on this podcast. Right? Remember, look, this is a basket. It's going to cost 20 quid or something like 25 pounds or dollars. And if you're making disgusting espresso, this isn't going to save you, right?
Exactly. So that's precisely what I'm after. So it's not.
If you're making good espresso and you're looking for a way to make it even better, then that would be one thing to try, which is a pretty cost-effective way to do it.
True.
They also have better materials, and some of them now have like this nano coating.
Yeah, it makes it easier to clean.
Makes it easier to clean. Yeah. Oh, that's spice. You know what? That's something that's not on my list, but we should add that. Yeah. You should be cleaning your machine. You want to make better espresso. If you're not cleaning your machine regularly, then you are going to be leaving oils, both on the shower screen and on all the equipment you use in the baskets. And that absolutely will introduce bitterness into your brew. So I personally use pulley, but a lot of other people use this other stuff called Cafizza. Yeah. They're cleaning chemicals. The same thing, basically. I'm sure that they'll be all horrified to hear that say that, but they're cleaning chemicals. They're pretty cheap to get. You don't use a lot of them. I clean my equipment every week, every Sunday. It's a little ritual I go through. It doesn't take very long. You need a blank, what's called a blank plate. So you pop out the basket, you put the blank plate in, you put a little scoop, you get a little brush with a scoop on it. You put a little scoop of the chemicals in, you run it 3 or 4 times through, just following instructions, you run it. And at the same time, I take the baskets that I've taken out and I pop them in a little Tupperware thing with some hot water, another scoop of chemicals, put that aside for an hour, job done. Yeah.
And then you have to rinse everything manually.
You obviously rinse everything out, or you make the first couple of espressos you give them to somebody else. It's up to you.
That you don't particularly like.
Somebody you don't like. Yeah, definitely.
Then talking about portafilters, there is a lot of hype about bottomless portafilters.
I don't say that. That's one of my next things. You can't shoot down the bottomless portafilter.
I'm not gonna shoot it down. But why
You're
do you need
war here?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
why do you need?
Okay, yeah. Come on, bring it, pal.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
Why do you need a bottomless portafilter?
Because it helps to train you. So if you've got extraction problems, so it's not because of how it looks, right? Although it does look kind of
also because how it looks.
Yeah. So if you want to impress your friends on Facebook, you get yourself a bottomless portafilter, and then it looks amazing. Unless you screw it up,
practice a lot.
It goes everywhere. Practice a lot. Yeah. So, but this is the thing. So there are times when I make a coffee, and I use the naked portafilter, naked bottomless, the same thing. So you use naked portafilter and it shoots everywhere. And I think, man, what did I do wrong?
Also, why did
I mean, everywhere. I mean, it goes everywhere. I mean, it'll come out like, how does it get out of that angle? So everything gets covered in espresso, basically. But what this is basically telling you is something's wrong. The other thing you do is when you look at it as it's coming out, you want to see, is it coming out in one location or is it coming out relatively evenly across the whole bottom? And by looking at that, you start to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I've tamped unevenly, or maybe I haven't distributed the coffee very well. And we're going to talk a little bit about some ways of doing that as well. But it absolutely does give you an indication. It's a training tool and nothing more than a training tool. Did I get that right, Max?
Tool. Absolutely. I agree 100% on it. I forgot one thing. We both forgot one thing.
Yeah.
And it comes up, especially when you use the bottomless portafilter the first time. If you haven't got the pressure adjusted to 9 bar, you're into for a very nasty surprise.
Right.
Because
I've actually never tried one on a machine that's not 9 bar. What happens?
I have seen it.
Is it funny?
It reminded me of the space shuttle taking off. It's literally, you have a column of coffee coming out of it.
Right.
And that is because the coffee machines, unfortunately, nowadays they are calibrated to be used with pressurized portafilters. User.
Like people buying pre-ground coffee and then putting them in a pressurized portafilter, and they come out at 15 bars, and it's not ideal. So if you've got a machine that's using 15 bars, certainly one of the fastest ways to improve your coffee is to see if you can change that. Some machines have what's called an OPV valve, or screw rather, where you can change it with the screw, like the expensive La Marzocco's or the ECMs. All the ECMs pretty much have a screw. If you're a poor man like I am, you use a Gaggia Classic Pro. You buy the kit, but the kit's 20 quid, 20 pounds, $20,
and it will make a major difference.
And it takes about 15 minutes to fit.
Yeah, before you do anything of what we described, you should do that.
Yeah,
because otherwise, all of what we described until now doesn't make a sense, because it will not
won't help you with your 15 bars.
No, it's just not gonna work. Simply as that.
I mean, it's interesting. Gaggia says on there, I watched their YouTube video talking about it. They said it's not necessary to mod their machines, and I'm like, well, but you're putting it out at 15 bars. I'm pretty sure it is necessary.
Well, you can have an okay espresso, and I mean, I have an example in my kitchen. I'm using now. I'm still using because nobody bought it. Buy it. Please, I want my Gaggia back.
I'm begging you.
So I'm using the Nuova Simonelli Oscar 2, and mine has an OPV because I've installed it, but it didn't have an OPV. It was actually running at 15 bar. And it was making good espresso. It just does. The reason for that is that it's got mechanical pre-infusion. So that is
it really helps.
A trick. It's a trick to have an even extraction and prevent problems that would arise when using too high pressure.
Right.
So if you pre-infuse, you can then ramp to a much higher pressure, and you're okay.
Okay.
But if you have a 9 bar modification, which is going to be much faster, much easier to dial in your espressos and have more consistent shots, because your back pressure will cap at 9 bar. It's not going to be your grind that caps at 9 bar, because at that point it might be too fast. So it makes everything more complicated.
Yeah, so perfect. I've got one more thing to talk about, and I've saved the best to last because it's the cheapest.
Yeah.
The cheapest thing that's going to help you improve your espresso is this: tap and groom. Tap and groom. So the grooming is a distribution. So you can use a distribution tool. But what I found, and we've talked about this before, Max, we both secretly and furtively, when no one's watching, because it doesn't look very professional, use our chopsticks to distribute the grinds.
Yes.
And
we both use one chopstick.
But there, you can buy things to do this. But you can use. I wouldn't use anything flat like a spoon. But if you've got anything like a safety pin or something like that, what you want to do when the coffees come out. So actually, even before you do this, depending on the grinder that you've got. So the grinder that I've got is it's a Eureka 675. No. It's a Eureka. Anyway, it's a big commercial 75 burr grinder. And the forks that hold the portafilter there's like a little screw on there, and you can move the forks up and down. So you can get, if you're filling the portafilter directly, you can get it just in the right place. And then the nozzle where the grinds come out slides backwards and forwards. So the idea being that you set it at just the right location so that the grinds land in the middle of the portafilter. So the first thing I say is, if you're grinding into the portafilter, if you're grinding into the basket, and you might be thinking, well, what am I grinding into? Of course I'm grinding into the basket. I don't. But you might not. Right? We can talk about that. But if you're grinding in the basket, you want to, as much as possible, distribute the grinds when they're coming out from the grinder into the basket as evenly as possible. And that will make a difference.
Spin the basket. Normally it's
you can spin or move the basket. That's why you see people moving the basket. But you can oftentimes on many machines adjust on many grinders. And this also goes, I suppose, back to what you were saying earlier on about buy a decent grinder. Buy one where you can adjust it so you can get your portafilter so the grinds are coming right into the center and distributing from there, and then move it around. Maybe give a little bit of a tap or a little bit of a shake so it helps settle them in halfway through the grinds being put down there. But then when you take it out, what I do, especially if you're grinding quite fine and there's maybe a little bit of clumps in there, is you get yourself a little thin pointy thing or a chopsticks or something like that, and you just move it through the basket so that everything is moved around, everything gets a little bit jiggy, everything gets a little bit a bit disco, and you've moved them around a little bit and they've all settled in.
What you're doing in there, you're actually distributing the fines evenly across the basket.
You're declumping and distributing the fines, and then you tap. Now tapping's controversial, but I watched the most insane video on Barista Hustle on this. So Barista Hustle is a website. I love to support these guys because they just do such insanely good quality material. It's like a subscription you have to pay like monthly. It's not very much, but in there they did this test because some people say if you tap, the fines fall to the bottom, and then you'll have an uneven distribution.
Not true.
Well, okay, you say that, but they evidenced it by like doing a test where they would tap hard. I think they did it like 10 or 100 times, like the thing, right? I can't remember. It's I watched this, and then they would take the top half of the grinds off and put that into another basket, right? And then they would do it again, and then they would take the top half and put it back on the other basket. So, and then the bottom half on the first basket. So what you ended up with was a full basket of only the bottom half, of two bottom halves, and another full basket of only the top halves. Make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they measured the extraction time coming through, and there was basically like negligible difference. So what it shows is that you can tap as much as you damn well like, and what will happen is you will even out those little pockets, which is what you want to avoid, these little micro pockets where the water will suddenly find an easy way through. You'll tap and make sure you declump, distribute around, and then give it a good tap before you tamp, and that will make a huge difference in the quality.
But I have two questions. The first one is, what grinder were they using?
Oh God, I don't represent them. So I was simply referring to it.
The question I'm asking is because if you're using a flat burr grinder, you're going to have a unimodal distribution of particles as long as you're not single dosing. If you're single dosing, you're going to have a distribution over time where the particle size changes, because at the very beginning you have the pressure of the beans that pushes everything.
Right.
And at the very end, instead, you don't have the pressure, so you actually have the bean bouncing.
I'm pretty
around.
sure they use the Maholig EK43s.
So that's a good one, because that actually feeds the beans at a constant speed.
Yeah.
So that will have a very fine, very, very narrow size distribution, whether you're single dosing or not. So, and that's the reason why you wouldn't have major differences between the top and the bottom, if there was difference to be observed. I don't believe you would see much of a difference, because you're not really sieving. If you're using instead, for example, a conical burr grinder, you will have a double distribution. You will have fines and coarse particles at the same time, as we discussed in the grinder episode. The reason why you mix most of the times, and the reason why you see lots of people mixing the coffee beans and distributing, is not because they are uneven, it's because they're single dosing. And they're using stuff like the niche. The niche 0, actually, now they've added a little bit of a modification, which is a small opening that feeds the beans one at a time. So it has a constant feed.
I got you. Nice.
And they're not pressured into the birds, because that will have a different pressure while it grinds. Grinders, most of the time, they're designed to run with beans on top.
Yeah, that's right. The gravity pushes it down, right?
Yes. So you have an even pressure of the beans, and that's why single dosing conversions often involve sort of like a meat press, that you can press your beans down so that you evenly distribute the pressure all the time. That is because in that way you get an even distribution of particles. When you grind, at least what I do is I grind into a glass bowl and then mix that with a chopstick.
Okay. Well, obviously that's bananas. But what I do is I grind into a dosing cup, and then I put it just like a stainless steel dosing cup. I'll grind into that. So I'll just hold that in front of the grinder. Then I'll put that over the top of the portafilter, and then swivel it upside down, give it a little tap, a little jiggy thing, which does nothing, I'm sure, but it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm Tom Cruise in Cocktail. I do the Tom Cruise in Cocktail thing with my portafilter, and then from there, I'll just even it out a little bit, do the distribution with a distribution tool, and then maybe tamp if necessary. But if it's clumpy, I will run my chopsticks through it. I found that since I started dosing into a dosing cup and doing the jiggy Tom Cruise cocktail move, that I don't really need to do the grooming.
Yeah, because what you're actually doing is you're distributing already when you're mixing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you had any sort of unevenness of particles, when you shake it, you're actually mixing everything together. So all of the parts of your coffee, of your pack, they're composed by the same proportion of fines and coarse particles.
Right. So that's something I would definitely recommend doing. And again, all of these things that we've talked about are incredibly cheap, right? Relatively speaking, how much you spent on an espresso machine, don't spend more on a better espresso machine until you spend 20 quid on a dosing cup or 10 pounds on a cheap scale.
Yeah.
Do that stuff first, and that's going to really bring your game forward.
Absolutely.
The other thing that will really bring your game forward is understanding the maths behind the extraction. And I don't know whether we should talk about that. And obviously, we're not going to talk about that today, but I don't know if we should talk about that in the future. We probably should. I just think it's going to be could be a very dull episode and everyone's going to tune out, but we'll give it a go, because ultimately, if you think about there being a curve, everyone knows the terms under extraction, over extraction.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense if you've got under extraction at one end of the scale and over extraction at the other end of the scale, that in the middle is the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, okay, how do I get to the good stuff? And I'm afraid once you've got your scale and everything else, you have to know a little bit of math. But look, if I can do it, I guarantee you anybody can do it. So we'll maybe talk about that on another episode.
Yeah. True. That is another thing that I think is important. But most of the times, you can actually brush up your technique. You don't need to upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot
I
of
mean,
time.
obviously that's for other people. I need to upgrade.
Absolutely.
And you need to upgrade, Max. So we obviously need to upgrade, but that's because we're experts. And
yes, actually, I want to downgrade myself because I really want to start using my Gadget again. It's sitting in the shed waiting.
Which Gadget?
The Paros.
Oh, the Paros. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's still
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need to sell the Nuova Simonelli, and I'm loving that machine. I mean, it's brilliant. It makes an amazing cappuccino, which brings a whole different level of complexity.
Yeah, milk's a whole nother episode. Yes. Or
and
series.
We're not going to talk about.
We're not going to touch on the milk yet.
Nope.
Nope. I'm definitely not going to go there. But I'm really tempted to buy a hand grinder, Max. And the thing about my Gadget Classic Pro, I have to tell you, is I make perfectly great espresso on it. I have done some of those upgrades, the PID, and temperature does make a difference. You do extract faster at a high temperature and slower at a low temperature, and it's an extra variable. But until you've got all the other variables worked out, there's no point introducing that one.
Yeah.
I would love to have some pre-infusion. I'm one of these days we're gonna end the podcast because I need to get the last word in. But I'm just. Is there anything you want to say before we go, Max? No? Okay, great.
No.
So no, I'm sort of tempted to get something shinier. I just want something. I've had the Gadget for a while. Can I get something shiny?
I can understand that.
That's really what I want, is something shiny. I want something shiny for Christmas.
Yeah, I can sympathize with that.
Yeah.
But to be honest, if I was to upgrade, at this point, I would start considering something plumbed in. I know it's crazy. But I would consider something plumbed in because vibratory pumps are a bit, I don't know, kind of ruins my feng shui.
Yeah, I know. I want a rotary pump. I want a rotary pump because they're cooler, and
it's a more even
quieter. They're kind of slightly cooler. It makes you feel like a little bit more like a pro as well, having a rotary pump in there. But I want something with I want something that definitely doesn't have an app.
No.
I don't even get me started on the apps. I've got an app for my scale. I've just never got it to work. I don't want an app. I want something shiny. I want pre-infusion, all right, and a PID.
Why did you say PID? I was about
because
to say,
I saw you getting excited, and I thought I would save that to last, and I just drop it in there when you're clawing.
I was going to propose the Oscar.
Yeah, but it's a heat exchanger. I don't need a heat exchanger. I just need a single boiler. I don't make any milky drinks. I want a single boiler machine that's shiny and has a PID and flow control. So if anyone wants to send me one, please do. Just get in contact with me. I'll send you my address. Please send one over. I'm not sure what it would be, but I really won't care as long as there's all those things. So Max, let's wrap it up. What have we got to talk about next week again? What are we doing next week?
We're
doing the
beans.
We're
doing our favorite beans.
Favorite beans, man. We've had to drink so much coffee. Do you know, I have to say before we sign off, I had a dream the other night that the doorbell kept on going and I'd open it up and it'd be someone with delivery of coffee. I swear to God, I had this dream and it would be the doorbell kept on going and it would be more and more people bringing more and more coffee. And I was happy to begin with, but on the fifth time or something, I'm like, I think I might have ordered too much coffee. It's a bit like that in my kitchen right now. I should see the kitchen. I've got coffee bags everywhere. My friend Adrian's making coffee and he's giving me bags of his coffee and I've just got coffee coming out my ears.
That's why you're wearing the headphones.
I don't want to show people my ears because there's coffee coming out of them. So I've got the headphones on. Have a great evening, Max. I'll talk to you soon.
See you.
All right. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to keep that in. Oh, wait. Here's the stop button.